All right, what's up everybody? My name is Michael and I'm a real estate developer, and this is the Real Estate Roundup. So the idea for the Roundup is really just to have a no-nonsense conversation with some buddies of mine that have made in the industry. These are guys that are out there raising capital, closing deals, and the goal is really just to show you the ins and outs of what it really takes to be in the industry. It's not easy. It is a tremendously difficult industry, and we really want to highlight the reality of it. A lot of things on social media paint it as this rosy picture of it's so easy and hey, look at me, I'm doing awesome. If you do it properly, this industry is extremely rewarding, but it's very challenging to make that happen. So the goal of the show is just to highlight what we're working on and to give you a realistic look into what some young real estate entrepreneurs are working on. So we want to do about one of these a month. At the end of every episode, we're going to have like a little fire round of questions that we'll debate and talk about. So if you have ideas for questions, shoot me a DM or shoot anyone on the Roundup a DM and let us know what you want to know. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's the first one and let us know what you think. Hey, my name is Mike Wayne. I'm a partner of Detroit Riverside Capital, and we are a real estate investment and development company. So my partner, co-founder, and best buddy over here, Alec Harris, and I basically fight the good fight trying to build apartment buildings around Metro Detroit area. We started about 3 years ago, and so we're still relatively new in the game, but we solely focus in Southeast Michigan right now, looking to expand outside of that at some point. And really our day-to-day is mostly centered around finding new land, underwriting deals, and then operating and building the deals that we've already closed on.
Axel Ragnarsson. I live in Boston. I'm in multifamily. We buy small to mid-size apartment buildings up in New Hampshire, which is where I'm originally from. We own a property management company as well, so we're vertically integrated up there, and we do a little bit of third-party management. And then a couple of years ago, we started getting active outside of New Hampshire in the Northeast and started buying some property down in Florida. So we own, I think right now we have 4 buildings down in Florida. Currently selling a couple of them, so going full cycle on 2. Got about 150 units up in New Hampshire, about 150 units down in Florida. And yeah, goal is to keep buying these small to mid-sized deals up in New Hampshire and buy some larger deals out of state and keep growing in those 2 markets.
Yeah, so my name's Tory Sheffer. I'm also in Metro Detroit, buying primarily like 8 to 80 unit multifamily, mostly value add. We have some new development projects in the works. Hopefully we'll be breaking ground on the first one either late this year or early next year. And then they also have some storage down in Texas and a couple other JV projects down in Texas with David. And then I have a 30 unit in South Carolina as well, but primarily is all Southeast Michigan, 8 to 80 unit value add multifamily.
Yo, I'm Dave. I am based in Austin, Texas, originally from Metro Detroit. I invest in multifamily, self-storage, commercial, a little bit of everything, but mainly apartments in Southeast Michigan and in Austin, Texas. I also have a software company called Real Estate Lab, you guys can see here, and we are an acquisitions platform for commercial real estate investors, underwriting platform. So I love doing deals, and I've got a self-storage fund with Tory. Haven't done a deal with any of you guys yet, Axel, Mike, or Alec, but excited to do one. So
yeah, we got to change that, man. What the hell? Let's get one going.
100%.
So I got to give a quick shout out to Dave, because when Alec and I were first miserable at our previous jobs and looking to do something else, we see this guy Dave Toupin, or the Real Estate Jedi, on Instagram. We're like, what the heck's going on here? This guy's just crushing it, man. He's like buying deals left and right and raising a bunch of money. And so Alec and I are like, man, we got to look into this a little bit. So we really credit Dave with kind of getting us rolling, showing us the ropes, and really launching this career in real estate. And I think you've done that for a lot of people, Dave. So go you, man.
Yeah.
So
no,
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Same story with me. So I was a real estate agent, and I knew a little bit about multifamily, and then I saw Mr. Real Estate Jedi on Instagram, and I slid into his DMs. I was like, well, if this guy can do it, I'm sure I can do it. And then so I slid into the DMs and bought him lunch, and we chatted, and this kind of started to snowball from there, and then found my first deal on a mailer, and then brought it over to him, and it ended up just being an absolute home run. So it kind of
That's sick.
snowballed and exploded from there.
I love that. Appreciate you guys.
Fun
Hey,
story.
Axel,
Story
I'm
real
sorry I
quick.
couldn't bless your life in the same way, but maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe
No,
one day I'll thank you for something, but we'll figure it out.
Well, let's
it is
also
so cool though, seeing what you guys have done. Like Alec, Mike, like I remember Alec the first time you hit me up on LinkedIn. Like we went to high school together, obviously, and you hit me up on LinkedIn, and we just started chatting, and then meeting a couple times, meeting you, Mike, just seeing what you guys have done, and obviously Tory. First time we met was at I think Buffalo Wild Wings in Royal Oak, and dude, what you're doing now is absolutely awesome. So I love it. It's cool that we can all do that, and we're all in our 20s, young.
We're young. I mean, when we first got in touch, when I first reached out to you, I mean, geez, you're probably what, 22, 23?
Yeah, I was young.
Ax, what's your start story? Were you like single family first and got into multi, or did you jump right into multi?
I was right into small multifamily. So I was buying 3 to 8 unit deals, like real small stuff, mainly 2 to 4 unit stuff, but it was a whole lot of triplexes, 4 units. Like I'd pick up a 5 or 6 unit here and gone into the commercial side and started buying when I was in college. And I had an internship where this guy that I worked for also did private money lending, which is like how I learned about real estate. I was like, oh, that's interesting. How do you, like, what's private money lending? What's the story there? Like, oh, people go find great deals. I loan them the money, they fix it up, and they either sell it and pay me off or refi and pay me off. So I was like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. So I found a bunch of deals on Craigslist when I got started. That was my initial start in the
Really?
business, was buying all these. Yeah, yeah, buying all these god awful for sale by owners on Craigslist in like the worst part of New Hampshire, which means nothing to anyone that doesn't know New Hampshire well, but like just downtown Manchester, which is like a tough part of New Hampshire. Yeah, it just snowballed. You do a couple, and then you use the money that you make on those to do a few more, and then it just spider webs, and then you just start to try and do bigger stuff. And that was kind of the route. But it was doing these tiny deals for like the first 3-4 years I was in real estate, so I didn't really like gain, like all of you guys grew way faster than I did when you got into it. Like it took me like a few years to do anything that was over like 5 units, 6 units. So, and then it was like, all right, let's get my head out of my ass here and start to do some more serious stuff. But yeah, it was just baby steps.
Mine was similar as far as I think it was 2017 is when I could go back and look at like, okay, that's when I first started reading books or podcasts about multifamily. And then it was 2019 when I got the first deal under contract, and then 2020 when actually the first one closed, and it ended up just being a monster. So it kind of blew up eventually, but it was like 3 years of zero until then. And
I was kind of in the
houses.
same boat where I was like, I didn't have the money to really go any faster. Like I was, I bought the first deal when I was going into my senior year of college, and then so obviously there was just no money there, and then I couldn't even like refinance out because I didn't have a W-2 or like any credit or tax returns or anything. So I just ended up having to sell the first few properties because I couldn't refi out of them. But it's just like I think that the faster people kind of see the light from like a capital raising standpoint, and then like even just charging fees and stuff like that on deals you do, like that makes it so it's just a lot easier to grow. Because I was just pouring my own cash into everything, which was great because it's like good to build a balance sheet, but it's just hard to build like a predictable business off of that, pick up like revenue along the way, which is kind of the hard part I've found.
Yeah, we can resonate with that because I mean, to date, we've been in this like absent of real W-2 jobs for like 2 years at least.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, like 2 full years. And man, it's like feast and famine. You get paid off fees, but then you don't get paid again until you get another fee. So it's been trying to balance that out. And we haven't exited a deal yet. We're working on exiting now, but I think that's one of the hardest parts about what we do is like trying to balance that income in the interim, because if you don't own the equity, then the cash flow is not going to support your life. So then you really have to support your life from the fees until you start exiting, and then you can use that capital to spread out over time to create the living expense. But I mean, that sounds like the case for you, Ax. David, what was your situation with that? Were you able to just support yourself from fees early on and then start to get capital from exiting, or how'd that roll?
Yeah, I was in college and I moved home, lived with my parents. So I had like zero overhead. I had a car, so I paid like, gas, car insurance, and food. So I think I was living off of like $1,000 or $1,200 a month for like the first year and a half. And I did a couple wholesale deals where I made like 3, 5 grand, 7 grand on single families for like the first 6 months. And then I dropped that. And so I had like maybe like 20 grand saved up or something like that. And I literally just used that to live on while I was doing deals. My first acquisition fee was like 16 grand, but I didn't raise enough money for the renovation. So I actually had to put that right back into the deal, which just sucked. I was like, oh my God, my first check over $10,000. I had to put it back in the deal. It wasn't until 2 years in I got my first big check, which was like 300, but it took like 24 months or maybe a little bit more than that. First like full cycle, you know, to where it's like, all right, now I can breathe a little bit, move out of my parents' house.
Yeah, look for the breathing room, man. Alec and I just decided to pull the biggest house hack of all time and just move into the building we built so that we can stay.
That's the way to do it.
It's easier to manage too when you're living in there.
Yeah, exactly.
One less
Yeah,
tenant
exactly.
to deal with.
Who needs on site? Yeah.
Literally.
I mean, I've gotten door knocks at 10 o'clock saying the roof's leaking. And one time we had the cops like bust down the door like 3 doors down from me. So it's been entertaining.
Yeah.
That
Never a dull moment.
Never. It was wild. This guy, we'll spare the details, but anyways, wouldn't answer his door. Police show up, still wouldn't answer his door. They literally kicked this bitch right in. Like kicked it, not off the hinges, but like
They kicked
the
it
whole deadbolt that was holding it, just kicked that thing right in and
Yeah.
got in there. So they said they would have broke, but they would have kicked in our front door too, which is like this big like storefront system that's like, you know, $3,000 doors. And they said had someone not walked out of the apartment, they would have kicked that one in too. So
The guy had his headphones on, so he couldn't hear them. He didn't hear them knocking. So he, you know,
Does insurance cover that, or who covers that?
His insurance did not cover it, and so he had to pay for it.
We
just
billed
for
take
billed
off
him
your
for it.
website that you don't have kick-proof doors anymore.
No,
yeah,
but we learned a lesson to provide the police access to the building. So
we
that was
smart.
a lesson learned.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
All right. Let's talk about some active deals that we're working on. So just yesterday, Tory and our group got a new deal under contract. We're pretty excited about. Tory, tell the people about that one.
Yeah, so it's in Brighton, Michigan, and it's 11 units and with some extra land. So it's on a little over 3 acres. The density there is 8 units an acre. So there's 11 units existing, built early 70s, I think in 1973. So we're going to buy the 11 units in the land, and we're going to put up another 13 units at least. And then there's also another 2.3 acre site right in front of it with road frontage on like on Grand River and Brighton. If any, you know, Grand River is like Main Street of everywhere. So another 2.3 acres right in front of us that we're trying to buy that allegedly we made an offer on it, and then the seller got another land contract offer from a friend of theirs, which I thought was fake, but apparently they're going to close next Friday. So
I haven't heard that update yet.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can see what he said. He texted me today. I'm a seller. As of now, things are looking good, and we are scheduled to close next Friday. I'll let you know if it doesn't work out. So, but you know, we ended up offering him. He wanted 285. This lot has been on the market, I think, 11 years, and I offered him 250. Yeah,
11 years.
11 years. I offered him 250.
Same agent, broker?
No, I think they've cycled through a few.
I was gonna say, imagine the patience for that broker. All right, no,
Oh my God.
let's renew.
Just renew. Well, so how I
touring
found it,
you.
I drove by the site like hundreds of times, and then I was driving by one night. My wife and I were going over to meet some friends, and I was like, well, why don't let's go drive for some deals real quick. So I drove by it, and I was like, that would kind of work good for an apartment site. And there's a brand new apartment, you know, like 300 units getting built across the street. I was like, we could probably get the zoning. So I looked into the zoning. We had 2.3 acres. We needed 3 as a minimum for multifamily zoning. And then I started to look at the land around to see if we could, and then, you know, see if we could get some more land. There's the 11 unit behind. Looked up the owner of the 11th unit, and he's got a website. He like turns around companies. So I called it, and it's his cell phone on his website. Like, yeah, I want to buy your property. He's like, all right, well, make me an offer. It's like, all right, 900 grand. He's like,
Uh-huh.
he's like, no,
See ya.
if we do anything right now, it'll be $1.5 million. It's like, all right, we'll give you $1.5 million. And that was when we were trying to lock up both of the sites at the same time. So I don't want to sit there and haggle with them. So I was trying to get both of them at the same exact time. Front one we didn't get at the moment. We'll go approach that land contract buyer and see what we can do to pull it together into a 42 unit. But as of now, 11 units, average square footage like 950 square feet. His average rent is like low eights, which is about $400-$500 under market. And then we'll build some more. And if it doesn't work out to be 42, that's or 43, I think would be our max, Mike.
43. 43.
Yeah. So worst case scenario, it's 24 small, a small 24 unit, which I don't mind, but best case scenario, it's 43 units, and it's a nice little site.
Great area too.
Yeah.
Does it
Brighton's
pencil
phenomenal.
from a development standpoint? Like, I'm assuming you're doing build to rent there, or
Yeah,
you
to
build. Yeah, you're building, you're gonna rent, but like what's like development cost per unit versus what you can get for rent on the back end?
So we think we'll be probably about $275 a unit to build the new ones. The new ones are going to be 2 and 3 beds, and they're pretty big, and they both have 2-car garages. So like if you just said that per unit cost, generically speaking, about like regular like mid-rise apartments, you look like you had 4 eyeballs to someone, because that number is just enormous. Average rent's like $2,400. You can justify the 275 in the units. And like the interesting economics here is that the 11 unit, we'll probably put 15 grand a unit into those before we turn them, and we'll raise those rents, but we'll force some value there. And then we're going to go back to the same lender and say, all right, now give us a construction loan to build the new, and we'll be able to use the forced value on the 11 units against the equity needed for the development. So there's like a little bit of arbitrage there, so to speak. And we'll probably have to bring another couple $100 grand to the table, but that's the game plan for now.
The seller right away, he said he wanted $1.5 million, but he wanted to invest 300 grand into the new development because he's always wanted to be part of it, but he's not a developer. So he said, pay him $1.5 million. He wants to put 300 back into it, which Mike and I were talking yesterday. It's like to buy his 11 unit with the value add, and like we only need 400 grand. So his equity could be almost all the equity, and we just self fund the rest of it or whatever. But see if he ends up coming through with it. But at the moment, I think he plans on it.
Yeah, and on top of that, obviously with the high rents are one thing, but you can operate it pretty efficiently. I mean, we use a property management company called KMG Prestige, and they're a part of that project that they're building 300 units right across the street. So they're going to use full-time management where you can use, I mean, they might not even never even have to be on the site except maybe once a week just to check it. So the management efficiencies are really key too.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can operate it really lean.
Yeah, have you guys found that with any properties? Because I mean, the latest with KMG is like there's a few properties if they're like well over 100 units, but I mean, there's a property that's like 92 units and they still don't even have a full-time manager. Like that person also manages a property too, and they kind of do this like platooning where like they'll have almost like a regional approach to manage a bunch of assets as opposed to like a full-time on-site. When it's over 100
Is
units.
it a new build?
Yeah,
New build.
both of them are new builds.
That's probably why, because like there's such little maintenance on a new build that you don't really need a full-time maintenance person. And same with like normally you get like longer term tenants on those type of properties, it seems. So maybe they don't need full time.
That's absolutely right. And KMG has told us that that type of demographic that's renting those apartments are going to stay there for longer than a year.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
like on Jordan, we have one leasing person and she comes to the building. We have like a conference room that she uses as a leasing office. She comes just twice a week and she'll have her phone 24/7. So she's answering leasing calls and like dealing with, tenant issues, but she only actually has to come in twice a week. And we got 48 units over there. So it's been pretty lean as far as like payroll costs on that one.
Is she on like your payroll, like on your P&L, or are you just paying like a higher gross management percentage fee to the third party group?
So she's on our payroll, but it's split between another property. And so, her salary is roughly around like 60 grand. So we're only paying, I think it's like 28 grand a year. And then maintenance is also split as well. So our maintenance guy is here once a week. We just KMG pays him a certain, I think it's $18 an hour, which is really good. So We get those management efficiencies when they split the properties among, or split the work
Manager.
among other properties.
What are you paying on like a
So I
percentage
have-
basis on top of that, like a few percent?
Sorry, what?
3.
Yeah,
3%?
3%. Nice.
So I just bought 36 units at 20 in South Line and 16 in Plymouth, and I'm using KMG on those ones. And they're like the main property manager for us is at one of their properties in Novi. So she's full time on a building in Novi. I think it's like 172 units, and then just on site at our 20 and 16 whenever she needs to. But those are even a half hour away from each other. So still able to manage it pretty well that way.
You really see like a big, they're really on site more and involved more like during the lease up period. And then once you're, fully leased up, honestly, I mean, Melissa is our leasing agent. Her time of work per week went significantly down because a majority of her work in the beginning was just purely leasing, marketing. Now she just deals with maintenance issues, but we have very little of them. Because of a new building, knock on wood.
I think like in today's renter's mindset, like the ability to get a hold of someone instantly is paramount. Like that's super, super important. But I don't know that everyone today expects to be able to like walk in between 9 and 5 and like see someone. I mean, that's probably a nice luxury, but as long as you can like get a hold of the person, I think that's probably most important. So we don't really mind the fact that she's not there because, we think the fact that she's still communicating kind of solves that issue.
Mhm.
But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? You think in person's important?
I mean, we closed a deal in Florida that was 48 units in May, and the previous owner had an on-site manager, like full-time on-site, which was overkill for a property of that size, but it was like a rough community. We converted that office back into a unit, and our property management company just like we don't have a payroll line item on our P&L. It's just 7% for management, and they just show units when they need to. They go meet people when they need to. Like they're headquartered 20 minutes up in Lakeland, Florida, so like not that far away. So we were thinking about it, like, do we want to do like a partial payroll and like lower the management fee? And and there was just we were trying to figure that out, but they were like, we could just manage this from 20 minutes away. Like we don't have to be there every day. Like we'll go there maybe a couple times a week, or send someone from the office, and either maybe a maintenance guy can let a tenant into a unit if they're showing a unit while meeting somebody else there. So I just pay them a gross management fee instead of that. And it all kind of works out to be relatively the same as if we had like a partial payroll person. But I don't think when people want to go lease an apartment, I don't know. I mean, in large communities, maybe it's different, right? Where you have like amenities and they want to go and walk the amenities and see everything. But like these kind of mid-sized communities, I still think people are just scheduling their showings through like Zillow or Hotpads or Realtor.com or like whatever.
You mentioned people scheduling showings through Zillow and Hotpads and Realtor.com. Like, do you have a lot of real estate agents showing your apartments to renters, or?
So the process that we use in our in-house management company is, we'll include in the copy of the for rent like ad to basically it's like a link to Turbo Tenant. So we use Turbo Tenant, or not Turbo Tenant, sorry, Tenant Turner. We use Tenant Turner to kind of manage the whole leasing process, and we can do like self shows through that. It tracks all the metrics, all the leasing metrics, how many showings you're doing, how many appointments are made, and how many and captures feedback, does all that stuff. So we take them from Zillow like out to Tenant Turner or our property management website. And then we got their phone number on there. So they're not like technically going through Zillow as a platform. I mean, they can message someone at our property management company through Zillow, but they can't really like schedule the showing on Zillow. It's more so,
Right.
it just drives the traffic.
Lead source.
Top of funnel.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave, I know you've had a bit of a shakeup in your world with this new software company coming in, and I know you're doing some storage stuff now. So what's the latest? What do you got going these days?
Yeah, I've got 6 or 7 real estate deals in the works. Couple were just before this. I got off a call. We were negotiating a purchase and sale agreement on a property I'm selling. So got a couple being sold, buying a few new ones, and then I've got like 4 or 5 renovations in the works. And things have definitely slowed down I'd say on the sell side. It's kind of interesting, right? I mean, the rates have gone up like almost 2% in the last 6 months. I know you guys have had experiences. I see
Yeah.
Alex smiling. It's
Sore
not
subject.
quite so funny, but sore subject.
All
But
you do is laugh about it, man.
yeah, 100%. But no, things are good. So real estate's moving. We've got a really cool condo project that Tory and I are partners on down in Austin. And we're just going through a bitch of a process with the city on permitting right now. And so that's been just a complete joy to deal with. But once we get through that, I'm excited to get those condos sold and keep moving through that project. And the software's been fun, man. It's like stepping into a whole new world that I knew nothing about, and still, I know a lot more now, but I'd definitely say I'm like a newbie in the software space. It's been me personally cutting $30,000 to $50,000 checks every month for developer payroll, and but we're building some really, really cool stuff that I'm really excited about. So once we get through we launched our beta back in January. We've got a bunch of users using that right now. It's like low cost. It's very simple. It doesn't do it. It does the basic functionality, but we've got a whole new version that I'm able to kind of use right now and test out behind the scenes, but we're pushing it by the end of this year with a bunch of new features and updates. And the goal is, it's been specifically for multifamily, but we're really opening it up so that it can be utilized by developers, commercial, self-storage investors, pretty much any type of investor, and just do a lot of really cool things. So it's been interesting, but I really feel good about it long term. Like anything, it's not like a 1 or 2 year plan. It's like a 5 to 10 year kind of runway that I'm really shooting for. And then hopefully one day CoStar will write us a hell of a big check and buy us out or something like that. So, but we'll see. First, got to change the way people think about that acquisitions process and improve that and really make an impact on the industry. So it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure that you've tried to underwrite something that makes sense as far as a critical mass. So what in your mind is that number? What amount of users do you guys think you'll need at scale to kind of hit the critical mass you need for the business model to sort of pencil?
Well, we'll cash flow if we can get 400 users. We'll cash flow actually fairly well. But if we want to obviously keep growing and scaling, our goal is in the thousands. Our true goal is 5,000 users at $300 a month. Which will bring us pretty close to being a 9-figure company. If we can hit 10,000, that's our stretch goal. We'll be you guys probably won't see me for 2 years. I'll be out in Fiji for a while, so we'll see.
You'll be inviting us, right?
You're right, correct. You'll be stuck with me on an island for a couple of years. Exactly. No,
I got a piece of it, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Tory's one of our first angel investors, so. Yeah, it's exciting, but it's a whole different game, dude. It's funny because in 2 years I already have 10 employees in that company, whereas my real estate company I only have 1, and I've had that for 6 years. So it's it's a different game.
I had this idea that was just itching at me forever, and being day to day in deals, I just never had time to work on it. So I went and found this guy. His name's Andrew. He was a senior at IU at the time. I convinced him to take this class where you basically walk through the whole startup process and you build a pitch deck and write a business plan and basically get the thing ready to go and raise money for it. And so he winds up winning this whole competition with this idea. Partially because it's a good idea, but mostly because this kid is just a rock star. Just absolutely crushed it. He's super smart, 4.0 student. Going to work at EY next year. And so he gets through this whole thing, and now we're just getting to the point where we're about to start developing. So we have one developer as a co-founder, and he's in on equity, but then we're about to start hiring out 1099 software developers to try to help us build this thing. And I'm just really, really nervous about what that is going to end up costing.
Yeah. Well, give me a call. I could probably help you out because trust me, I've been through all that. Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, and we likely will because right now it's one guy lives in Turkey and the other guy's in somewhere else, and it's not going to be probably perfect quality, but we're just trying to build the MVP right now. So we just need something that sort of functions how it's supposed to, so we can show it to some angels or get that whole ball rolling on the kind of the seed capital stage.
Is it private?
So, no, it's not private. So it's basically like in development, when you're sourcing all your finished materials, it can be a pain in the ass because there's so many different places you can buy them from. It's tough to really organize all that information into like a cohesive place, particularly in development, because like you have this set of architectural documents and they're hundreds of pages long, and all the information you need is like scattered throughout that set of drawings. And so what software is going to try to do is basically consolidate and combine all that information into like a single source, but also just like a much more like visible and transparent place to where you can visualize all the different finished components and the various takeoffs that are associated with those, and basically help you sort of make sense of exactly what you need to purchase for the development. And then I'll take it a step further and help you like select the items that you want. And then ultimately the revenue model of the business is to actually transact those products for the development. So you'd actually buy them, through the software. So it's everything from flooring to cabinets, countertops, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, blinds, doors, hardware for the doors. I mean, stupid stuff like toilet accessories and that sort of thing. Everything after drywall is really what it's targeted at.
Fixtures and finishes.
Exactly. Fixtures and finishes.
So could you essentially like upload your architectural documents? It'll pull out all that information. So you're doing a lot of like PDF reading recognition and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the goal in a scaled environment. Really on, it'll be a more manual process, but the basics is your plans are in front of you. They're easy to access. All the different pieces of your plans that you need are kind of chopped up and put in these bite-sized pieces that you can get to easily and make sense of. And then takeoffs for finished materials aren't that hard. Like for plumbing fixtures, it's like, how many bathrooms do you have? Okay, well, that's how many like sink faucets you need. And how many units do you have? Okay, well, that's how many kitchen faucets you need. But there's a little bit of nuance when it comes to like 88 units. Sometimes you need a little bit different spec, or if you're doing two different sets of specs between different units, then it can get complicated. So the program will be able to tease all that out and help you quantify it all and do all the takeoffs and basically organize all the information. And then like half the battle for us is like, because we took over our finish process, so our GC, we love them, but they weren't great at the finish process. So we took that over on our latest job, and like half the battle was just remembering like where you're at in the procurement process for the different materials. Like I might have like quotes on some, maybe some I've like gotten shop drawings, but they're not reviewed, and maybe some I've like ordered, but I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get there. So that's a big component of software too, is like the order management process and being able to give you transparency into what you've ordered, what you still need to order, what the status of shop drawings are, and then ultimately like when's the thing showing up at your site. So it's mostly centered at development. We acknowledge that for renovations and stuff, it could be used, but I think it's less valuable or just less relevant in that environment as it is in full scale development. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's been hours and hours of
cool
conversations trying to figure it all out, but that's pretty much the basic premise of it.
I mean, there's no shortage of demand for like new prop tech solutions. Real estate's one of the biggest industries in the world, and it's one of the only industries that we can guarantee will never go away. There are so many tech solutions that are needed for every aspect of it, right? And people are willing to bet on it and pay bigger multiples for it because of the fact that it's real estate. People are going to be developing multifamily properties in 100 years from now, right? As long as the world is still here and everything doesn't go to shit. And people are going to be underwriting and buying properties in 100 years from now, right? So it's not like crypto where, obviously we hope it's wrong or maybe we don't, but we don't know. Real estate, we know. So that's cool.
That we do.
Good for you.
That we do. Evergreen, right? So yeah, that's kind of vision. It's mostly because like we do this every day, and like it's such a pain in the ass that I'm like, man, if I could just build this just to solve my own problem, I'd be happy. So we'll see how it goes. It's been fun to try to piece this all together and learn about software because I was completely virgin on that whole topic. So Axel, what about you, man? What's the latest in deal flow? What are you trying to take down right now?
We're in the middle of raising a fund right now. Like it's a really small fund, only about $1.5 million is in terms of like a capital raise, but we're going to go raise, it's a closed end fund. So we're going to raise the capital. We already have a couple deals under contract, but then we're going to go and put it to work over a few months, just small deals up in New Hampshire. And the objective being like those deals are they're so simple for us. Like it's so rinse and repeat with our team up there that it's just kind of it's like an autopilot type of business plan. And the other piece of it too is that was like the first 506c I did, and I was like just curious to see what kind of capital that I personally could raise, just going and blasting it out on, LinkedIn or Instagram or, wherever. Right. And it's been cool to see the response. There's been a lot of people that I just have never heard of that are interested in just investing. Right. Which is like always a weird outcome of going out there and raising capital publicly. But that's really it in the works right now. I mean, we're actually selling a lot of property right now. I'm selling like half of what I personally own at the moment. So I maybe have like 60 or 70 doors that like I just personally own up in New Hampshire. I've sold probably 20 units this year. I have another 20 units I'm going to be selling in the next few months. And I just want to be real cash heavy heading into the next year. And I also have a couple of deals with with floating rate debt where I'm just getting stabbed in the gut right now. So I'm like, I just I gotta throw some cash in the bank to make sure I don't stress too much when I go to bed at night. And we just want to start like buying larger stuff. So I'd like to just primarily buy 50 plus unit deals like, into the future, but we keep buying small deals because it's just like, making the cash register ring from like, you pick up a couple of, small fees here and there. I can personally do a lot of them or just JV them with like one other person, two other people. This fund structure is just a way to raise capital to buy like a few deals with less legal docs. So we're just trying to, try that structure out. I'd like to spend more money on hiring and just kind of sizing up from an average deal size standpoint. So that's what I got going on. I mean, mainly selling stuff, although, we have 4 of these small deals under contract, 4 unit, a 6 unit, and 8 unit. We just put another 6 unit under contract this week. But my big thing is I'm onboarding a director of operations, like a 6-figure employee. My second like W-2 salaried employee, my first one who helps with acquisitions, he's mainly commission based. So it's not like as much of a hit on a monthly basis from a cash flow perspective. Hiring someone to just kind of try and do all of the asset management, project management, build our internal systems for the business so that I can go spend more time looking for deals. Cause I just spend like an absurd amount of time on a weekly basis, just like coordinating transactions and doing asset management and just emailing documents around. Like I literally feel like that's what your job becomes when you're in this business, is just emailing documents. So I was like, I gotta spend less time doing that. So that's kind of my big development, I guess, just hiring somebody. So that's exciting.
You're right about that, man.
We got the same problem.
A lot of document flow, a lot of busy work. It's like I'd love to be able to hire someone. That's a goal of ours too, because there's so much of that you just look at like the value of those tasks versus the value of finding new deals, and I mean, it's just like unbelievable the difference in value. So we definitely want to hire someone for the same reason, because it's like, I don't know if it's busy work or grunt work or whatever you want to call it, but like there's a ton of that in this business, especially with construction.
So
because
much.
like when it comes to the city, the amount of bullshit that you have to do, like interfacing with the city and getting your permits and getting inspections and everything, is like just mind-numbing.
Why?
So it's unbelievable. So we're definitely looking forward to having someone that's capable of taking that over. But Axel, I'm curious on the 506B or C, did you say? Run me through like what the difference is between B and C, if you know, and which one. You said you're marketing on LinkedIn and Instagram, so is that one allow like direct marketing of the investment opportunity? Because I know one restricts that.
Yeah, so I'm doing a 506c, which is you can only take accredited investors, but in exchange for that, you can blast it wherever you want to send it out. It's a little bit more of a pain from like a tactical fundraising perspective, because you have to, every investor has to basically verify that they're an accredited investor. And we do that with like a third-party service. So there's like there's some friction there. Like it takes a little bit to go through that process, but you can go talk about it on a podcast and throw it on Instagram or whatever. We've historically only done 506Bs, and we've only done 2 of them. So it's not like we've done a lot. Most of what I've done is just myself, just buying deals and then JVing with a person here and there. Like that's what I prefer to do, is just operating agreement. There's like 5 of us in the deal, maybe a couple of partners, a few investors, and that's it. Like that's my strong preference. But I've been doing a lot of syndications just to get familiar with it. And the only reason I say that is like going through that process, it's so annoying. Like I'd rather not do it if that's an option. But to answer your question, 506B, the other Reg D exemption, you can have up to 35 non-accredited investors, but you can't publicly advertise it. So the only people that can invest in the deal are people you have a pre-existing relationship with, which I think is defined as more than 30 days. So, you've spoken with them, you have some knowledge of their situation, their financial situation, and you can take money from them. it's way more like from a legal perspective. It's like from a cover your ass perspective on the legal side, it's way easier to just do a 506c because it's like it's very black and white. Like whereas a 506b, there's a lot of gray area there. Like, oh, you kind of knew this person, but the last time you talked to him was like 5 years ago and you did it over email. Like that's kind of not a pre-existing relationship. So I think a lot of people that are raising capital that are doing it like wrong and getting in trouble are doing 506bs where they mess it up, especially from a public advertising thing. Like that's the challenge, is there's so much misinterpretation on that piece of it. From here on out, if I'm doing a syndication and I'm not just doing a JV, which is what most of our deals are, I'm probably just going to do 506Cs because it's way more cut and dry. Way less likelihood that you get your door kicked down by the SEC.
About
That's something you want.
the C versus the B too, because it's like at some point the well dries out. A lot of my deals, I have the same investors and do exactly the same thing of operating agreement. We have 3, 4, 5 people involved and that's it. So a couple of the other ones on the bigger syndications are not really bigger, I guess. But I just did one that was $1.5 million raise, and you can't talk about it publicly. So it's like, all right, but I got to tell these people that I know, and then they tell a few people that they know, and it's just a big underground world of telling people about this deal. So it'd be interesting to see. So I'd be interested to hear how that has turned out going public, because I've had two people that I haven't talked with, same thing, that have invested in some of my deals, or not that I haven't talked with at all, but I haven't talked with them in many years, and they show up and I go look them up in my phone and it's like, oh yeah, I remember this guy, and talked to him and met with him and the whole deal. But it's like he's never mentioned it to me that he's interested, but somehow I me a lot of people are on my newsletter, and then they'll say, hey, I'm interested, but you don't know that they're interested until they come to you and say, hey, yeah, I'm interested.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of the challenge, is like, I think we're kind of in a period of infancy with the whole, just syndication world where there's a lot of people that just kind of rushed into this whole space and started raising capital and syndicating deals. And especially the big deals where you have like 7 co-general partners and one person's putting it on LinkedIn and another guy's doing this. And there's like 7 individual conversations happening that aren't, and it's just like there's no cohesiveness to that. And
4 of them don't know it's a 506B, and they're just posting about it.
And they're just on LinkedIn,
they're
like
just not involved in the deal at all.
Yeah, and some of them are posting like closing
2%,
announcements with their logo when it's not even
AUM.
their deal. Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to get kind of burned with that. So I'd rather just not. And the whole thing too is like, everybody on this call, this is kind of why we're doing it, right? We're trying to all build like a platform, right? We're all trying to get known in a broader sense. So it's just to leverage that following, you have to kind of go the 506c route, right? So it's kind of that's how I view it. Like I want to go post something on LinkedIn, right? And some dude I went to college with might be like, yeah, I've been following your stuff, but he's never voiced that he would be interested in investing, like unless I would have posted it, in a more public setting. So it just makes it easier to just, because even if they don't invest in that deal, when you take deals out and you post about it, that's when a bunch of people start talking to you like, oh, that's interesting. Like, let's have a high level conversation and I'll get you on the next one. Which if you're doing a 506B, you can't really do that like in any scalable way.
Yeah, it's just pure word of mouth. You just gotta know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
And if I'm doing that, I'd rather just do an operating agreement.
Yeah. So much easier.
All right, boys. So we're coming to the segment that we're gonna call Fire Round. We got 2 questions to chat about tonight. First is it better to build or to buy, and why? So build meaning develop, buy meaning buy something existing.
In the current environment that we're in right now.
Oh, in today's current environment?
In today's current environment.
Yeah, I'm unimaginably biased towards buying because my building experience. I'm not a builder like you. I can't compare myself to you guys because you guys are so incredibly involved with it being your only project that you, at least at the time when you guys started it, and so you guys really mastered the development process, whereas I may have 6 or 7 existing deals going on and one of them is a new development. So just being not as familiar with the process, it's taken longer than I would have liked. COVID kicked our butt. I bought lumber literally within the top 10% of the peak. Tell me about it. And the
Yes.
only saving grace is that we built it in Austin, Texas, which is the fastest growing city in the country. And so our rents have gone up 60%, 70% literally in the last year and a half. So I would say buy, just because with my experience, I can buy deals, turn them around, flip them, or hold them and cash flow them, and I'm making money a lot quicker than in my experience in the development game. And so that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, buying also assumes, and this is why we're biased against it, because buying also assumes that you have deals to buy or that you can go find them, right?
Mhm.
And so like what we struggled with and why we ended up in development was because we were brand new, totally green, telling brokers, hey, we're looking for nice, juicy value add deals. And they say, get in line, buddy. So is everyone else, right? So like we were at first like, well, shit. And then this development pops up and we're like, no one else is really looking at this. Like
Correct.
this, it wasn't competitive at all. Like we were able to just swoop in, make sense of it, get it under contract, move it along. And then, since then we've realized that there's big players in town and all the best sites are normally locked up by one of them. So like there's definitely still a level of competitiveness, but it's a much less crowded sandbox.
It's
So
a
I
bigger
think that's
barrier to entry to getting
right.
into that space.
Which is why it's a bigger sandbox, because
Correct.
it's harder to get into, so therefore less people are into it. Versus anyone that listens to bigger podcast or bigger pockets thinks they're a syndicator, and then all of a sudden they're competing for these deals. So I'm sure
Correct.
your response to how do you find deals is, off market or, be first in line to a broker for their broker relationship. But we just didn't have that at first. So we just found that we could get in the door easier on development. And then what we've learned now is that they really are different businesses between building and buying. Like it's the
Very
same
different.
end goal, maximize NOI and generate good returns, but the process of how you, number one, find the deal, and secondly, how you execute the deal is wildly different between
Wildly
the two.
different.
So, now we've realized like we don't, other than knowing the mechanics of multifamily real estate, we don't have any competitive advantage in the value add space, So I think that's why we stuck to it. So our answer is obviously biased because it's all we do, is build, but we're not biased to the sense that we would never get into value add, and maybe we'll find some more deals like what we're working on with Tory right now, where we can buy an existing at an overvaluation based on what's there, but be able to add to that with the extra land that's around it and building units. And, maybe that can be a fun little thing. I know it's the second time you're doing it, Tory.
I agree. I think it's a great way to transition into value add space. I mean, I like value add better, but like I like the non-gut value add because I feel like gut value add is almost like developing and building. Obviously not as long of a time frame, but we'll see. I have, I think, 3 different projects that are gutted and 0 occupancy right now, so none of that is fun. Luckily, we have fixed rate debt and all of it, and interest only. But it's just you're just beating your head against the wall. You have a small building in Royal Oak, 8 units. 8 units, they're going to rent for $1,800 probably each. So you go 1,800 times 8 times 12. That's you start to really cringe at the number of money you're losing out per day. But it's just the process you got to go through. But so I mean I like buying, but definitely it's off market. Definitely, I think I bought 2 deals that have been brokered. I would like to get into building more and do long term. I think definitely the business plan is to be primarily a developer. So with my first one that we have going is a 24 unit that I bought. It's on 23 acres. When I bought it, there was 10 units vacant, and we did the full value add process and got it stabilized last summer. And then we have 23 acres there, so we can build another 72 units. So that's the one we're going to hopefully break ground on this fall. So, we'll do another 72 units there, and then hopefully our 11 unit that we're going under contract on turns into 42 or 43, and can kind of get a more of a foothold into a pure development standpoint. But I think buying the value add, like on the existing value add on the 24 unit, right? So we paid $2,050,000. We spent about $350,000 on renovating to get it to stabilization. And then, so the current value of that property is around 3 million, probably 3.2, maybe around that range. And then once we get approval for the land, we're going to go to the bank with our new valuation of this land value has a market value. So we're going to assign a $15,000 per unit land value to all this extra land that was given no credit at the purchase. So essentially we're getting our land for free, but we're going to the bank with a 15,000 per unit land value. So 72 units, it's $1,080,000 of equity just created out of getting approvals to build. And then we go for financing. I think our total project cost is going to be in the 13, I guess on the new construction is going to be around 13 million. We're going to be able to use, the little over $2 million of equity that we have and roll that in. So we'll only need to raise maybe another $1.2 million off of the first, the first amount of equity we put into that deal was 622,000. That'll be kind of a sweet spot.
So you'd be like 2 million of actual equity into a $13 million build, and it's probably worth 15, 16 when it's done. So you got 2 million into a $16 million asset.
Yeah. So not bad.
Not a bad spread.
Not bad at all.
I'm bringing on another developer partner. So he built a 6-unit building in South Lyon, which is like half hour away from where this property that I have in Fenton is. So he built this 6-unit building, and they built it in 9 months and leased it up right away for $1,900. And we're going to take that exact same building and just do 12 of them. So from a design, from an engineering scope, it's going to save us a ton of time because we're literally just copying and paste exactly what they did. He already went and sourced all the materials, knows exactly where all the materials are. So we can buy all those materials super early in bulk and store them here until we're ready to go, and then just cruise through the development, hopefully, is the goal. So
Yeah.
We love that strategy.
It feels like it's as low risk as new development can be. It feels pretty good. And then the existing property is the existing 24 units, our NOI on that right now is about 17,000. So we're able to support a lot of that debt and our carrying costs with that existing property. So that will obviously help too.
I think the only thing I'm going to add is, well, the way I look at real estate, I'm like, you can be pretty stupid and still just do okay when you're buying existing stuff. And the only place you can really get like totally out of line is if you just really screw up on the financing side and over levered and you don't have cash. Like, that's one. But the other thing is you screw up construction, because that's where that's where money starts to come out of your pocket. I think it's just really hard to lose in real estate if you just buy a building that doesn't really need that much and you just own it, right? And you just you don't screw up on the financing side. Whereas development is entirely construction. It feels, obviously there's an element of risk there. I mean, some people would say, well, you're building from the ground up, you know exactly what you're going to get. There's no surprises, and that's probably true, but also just such a significant level of oversight that has to happen along the way. I know you guys must have been on site with Jordan like every day when that was being built. For me personally, I don't invest close to me. Obviously Florida's a flight from Boston. New Hampshire is about an hour and 15-minute drive where we buy up there. I don't, I go and check on the properties once every 4 months, once every, however long, right? I really, I bought a property up there 3 years ago. I haven't seen it since I bought it. Like, so there's an element there that allows me to approach the business in a different way.
I love doing that.
I don't know, and it's just like, so for me, it's just, I would never be able to be on site personally. So I could just never consider doing a development like that. I'd have to partner with someone that could do that. And the other thing too is, like, personally, I invest in C-class stuff. It's just not profitable to develop C-class rentals. So I'll never get it to pencil if I'm trying to do it in a C-class lot in a C-class area. We've done deals where we've bought, similar to the project that you guys are working on right now, where you're buying an existing building, but there's some extra land, where there's maybe it's on an end lot, right? A double lot or a triple lot or something like that. And we can build a couple more of what's already there, but it never really pencils from like a cost to build per unit versus rent we can achieve per unit. We'd just be breaking even if we throw like a really aggressive cap rate on it. So at that point, looking at it through that lens, it's just not really something I've considered, although I would love to do it, right? Because as a guy that operates multifamily, I would love to own something that's new or a couple of years old or recently built.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a dream, because everything I own right now is C-class built in the early 1900s, which is the complete opposite of that. So that's my 2 cents on it. But, for me, it's just like a totally different risk profile, totally different business. Doesn't really work with the type of stuff that I'm already doing.
So question number 2 is, where do you see the multifamily investing market in 2024? So basically 16 months from today. So we've got interest rates, we've got change in consumer preferences, maybe demand, any of those factors you want to touch on, but where do we see the market in 2024? And not micro, not like in Austin or in New Hampshire, but more so just generically speaking, how do we think interest rate fluctuation is going to affect the market, and what do we think about consumer preferences and overall rental demand?
Well, I think it's interesting, obviously, with interest rates rising, it's obviously hurt a lot of property values. But now that interest rates have risen and home prices have began to come down, I've actually just saw an article that I think last quarter or this month, when the first month that home sales actually declined, that, you know, you might see our generation, millennials, Gen Z, actually start to purchase their first home. However, the rental market is obviously going to be hot for a few years. I really don't see it going anywhere. Obviously, interest rates have affected it. With property values, from a consumer preference standpoint, it's tough to predict.
I think from an interest rate perspective, we're at this weird crux where the Fed's trying to cool inflation and cool inflation and cool inflation. So they think hiking rates is doing that, but you know, on paper, I think it's showing that it is, but I think in reality, we're all seeing that it's not. So the question is, how far are they going to go? And when do they have to jumpstart and stimulate the economy again by lowering those rates back down? So, I mean, we're underwriting right now for our exit on Jordan. We're trying to figure out what our rate would be in 2024. And so we're hoping it's back in like the 3% range, because we're thinking, you know, through the beginning of 2023, we're probably going to see 2 more rate hikes is basically what we think from the Fed. And then throughout the latter half of 23 and into 24, hoping that rates start to dip back down, because the Fed's needing to stimulate at that point to keep everything afloat, so we don't have this whole thing come crashing down. So I would say that's more of a hope than a prediction, because frankly, I'm just not the most educated when it comes to this topic, even though it's literally the lifeblood of our business.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for us, like, interest rates being low are always a positive, like in every scenario, because lower interest rates during construction means lower construction costs, and lower interest rates when we're operating a deal and looking to exit means lower cap rate, higher value. So there's never a situation where we don't want rock bottom interest rates, but I would think in your guys' world, to some extent, rock bottom interest rates would make acquiring hard, because then cap rates are just absolutely as low as can be, and everyone wants ridiculous numbers for their stuff.
It's a high risk
So,
game. Then,
Yeah.
at that point.
I'd say too, like to add to that, I mean, obviously we always want lower interest rates. It helps everybody that own property, but at the same time, you know, with inflation obviously where it's at in the development world, we definitely need a fix, because costs are so high and rent's just going to have to be that much higher in order to build. And, you know, wage growth is not increasing nearly as much as, you know, construction costs. And it's going to eventually be a trickle down effect where, you know, if inflation doesn't decrease and prices of goods don't, then it's going to be an interesting scenario. You know, you're not going to be able to build unless you're building in, you know, the highest end markets where you can charge crazy rents, and, you know, salaries are super high.
Come to Boston. There's a
Yeah,
Boston and Austin.
Boston.
I mean,
Yeah,
a few of us.
right.
Yeah, I mean, and then Torio and Scottsdale, like, they didn't get the memo. 1 bedrooms for $5,000 a pop here if you want to come and move. I mean, those developments pencil pretty
Yep.
nicely.
I think in the next 12 to 16 months, with the higher rates, we're going to see obviously everyone who's got multifamily developments in the works, or people like you guys who are really scrappy and you're out there hunting for deals, like, and you guys are, you know, this is you're growing your business. You're obviously going to do whatever it takes to find new deals and keep it moving. A lot of big developers might be able to slow down or sit on the sidelines or say, hey, we're going to wait a year before any new starts. And so I think, you know, come 12, 14 months from now, we're going to see a lot less new starts on developments. People wrap up projects that have been in the works, and then the following 12 months rolling into like 2024, you know, hopefully we'll see, you know, because of the slowdown, there's just going to still be a pretty steady continued demand for apartments and not an oversupply. I think if rents stay, or if interest rates stayed the way that they were the past 2 years, we would probably get to a point of an oversupply, you know, in certain markets at some point in the next year or so. Yeah, I think there's just so much construction going on. So I think this is really good to slow things down with where rates and costs are right now. Like I think a lot of new constructions will be paused, put on hold. That should maintain a steady supply and demand for renters, across the board over the next 2 years.
Yeah, like office is getting crushed. I think in 2024 that I agree with you guys. I think rates are going to start to come back down. But I think as far as rent growth, I think it's going to continue to skyrocket because I know of a few personally tenants that live in some of our apartments that are re-signing because they want to buy a house, but let's say they're approved to go buy a house for 350 grand and their rate was 3.5%. Now the rate is 5. They're approved for a $220,000 house, but houses have gone up 30% in the last 2 years in Michigan anyway. Not they really can't go buy a house in the area that they want to be in, but they can live in our apartments for 11, 12, 1,300 bucks and be in a market where the average home price is 470 grand. So still like $1,000 a discount to your monthly payment, not even taking into account a down payment on a house. $1,000 a month. That's quite a big difference for most people. So I think
Correct.
I think rates start to come down. I think realistically they're all going to get jacked up. Obviously, with the whole student loans getting forgiven too this week.
Yeah.
I mean, inflation is going to go nuts for the next year or two. I think that the entire country is turning into a renter economy. You can buy clothes from Lululemon and put it on a payment plan now. It's I don't know. I think rent numbers are going to continue to just drive up.
Yeah, and to add to that too, because I think a big, like a significant nuance of the whole conversation is which class of asset are we talking, right? If for example, like Class C, there's a lot of data that's put out by CoStar and that's gathered by like RealPage is another data source where over the last 6-7 months, like Class C rent collections are dipping, they're falling, and it's a function of groceries being 20% more expensive than they were last year, gas being more expensive, just everything that we buy in our day-to-day lives being more expensive as a result of inflation. So if you're a Class C tenant, you're going to buy your groceries before you pay your rent, like 10 out of 10 times. So collections at the Class C level are starting to dip, and I can personally see that continuing, and we're starting to notice that just in our own portfolio because we're exclusively Class C right now. But for example, if you're in Class B, maybe collections take a hit. Maybe it's probably not going to be that significant. But to Tory's point, a lot of folks that are renting in Class B are renting now, but they'd like to buy a house in the future. And that's not an option really, at least at the same level that it was a year ago. That's just not there's not that optionality right now. So like I could see Class B holding really strong, but then on the Class A side, especially in markets that have had a lot of construction and where it's very development friendly, like Phoenix, Tampa, those markets where there's just so much Class A product being introduced because that's the only product that you can profitably build is Class A. I could see Class A rents probably starting to grow at maybe a lower rate. Collections are going to be fine because those people make money, so that's not going to be a challenge. But they're almost 3 different conversations, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. Where
no, that's a great point.
We're seeing challenges in Class C because just the day-to-day cost of living is just so much higher as a percentage of their regular income. Whereas, I mean, Class B, I think, is like the place to be nowadays, right? I mean, if you're buying Class B apartments or you're finding a way to develop Class B apartments and doing so profitably, like that's a great spot to be in because you're capturing all of the people that are really sticky right now, but they're not so financially affected by what's going on in the day-to-day economy or changing economically.
That's some good insights, man. I think
Very
there's a big difference between the different classes, but Tory, to your point, buying a house, really, I mean, even when interest rates were low, home values were still skyrocketing. So you're still hearing a bunch of people saying, I'm going to wait for it to crash and wait for it to crash. Well, now it's crashing to some extent, but now the ability for them to buy the house is much lower because they can't afford as much house because their interest is so much more expensive. So it's like all the people that said they were going to wait are now still waiting. I don't know for what, but I don't mind it because they're the ones living in our building next door, and we'll let that hold out forever. I think it was interesting what you said about the whole economy turning into like a rental economy, like a monthly subscription economy. It is everywhere. I think everyone is like learning that like
I mean, you look at BMW, heated seats. Was it heated seats?
I
Heated
literally
steering wheel? You got to pay
just
$20 a
was
month.
telling him about that last, and we're like blown away by that. We're like, are you serious?
There's a car wash brand in Detroit. It's called Jack's, and they just got sold for like what 150 million.
Yeah,
I think it
that's
was 150 million. Like 50 million for operations, 100 million for the real estate. But it's because they have this monthly subscription program to where like you're on the car club member or the car wash membership. And
I
so
have
private equity companies.
Phenomenal.
I have it too, but guess what?
I
I
have it.
haven't gotten a fucking car wash in like 2 months, and I'm still paying $25 a month. You know, it's like the
I
Planet
use it a
Fitness
ton,
model.
but I
swear
use it a ton,
everybody
but
has
it's unbelievable. It's fantastic.
I swear
Plus, they do
everybody has
good.
a Jack's car wash.
Jack's actually, I like Jack's. They do. I mean, that's the best car wash I've ever had. They got like 20 employees like watching your car. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's top notch. It's the best.
They literally print money.
Yeah. We're coming to time here, boys. So let's wrap this thing up. Appreciate everyone coming on tonight. I think this was super fun. We'll definitely look to do this again in the future. Probably be once or twice a month. So just stay tuned. I know when the next episode's out.